So sorry, good afternoon, all of you. There was some technical glitch from my side actually. Can you hear me? Can all of you hear me?
Yes, Altamash.
So welcome all of you for this today's very important session. I am Altamash Khan, Program Coordinator at Sphere India. I warmly welcome you all on behalf of Sphere India for a very important session where we will be pilot test. Good afternoon, all of you. There was some technical glitch from my side actually. Yeah, just a second. Can you hear me? Can all of you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. It was live streaming on YouTube and the audio was coming in. Yeah. So the session is jointly hosted by the National Institute of Disaster Management, Ministry of Home Affairs and Sphere India. And today's session is part of 3-day online training on protection and Eco DRR module for Manipur state. Today, it is the third day of it. And yeah, sorry, it was live streaming. I think some audio voices is coming in. Am I audible? Am I clearly audible to all?
Yes, Altamash, you're clearly audible and the live stream is also working perfectly. I checked.
Okay. Thank you, Ritika. Okay, I'll continue. So first of all, I'd like to introduce about this multi-sector coordination handbooks. They have been drafted by Sphere India under the network approach to emergency preparedness for response after numerous consultative meetings and workshops with sector experts from local and national organizations to strengthen sector coordination for EPR in 6 sectors that are education, health, food and nutrition security, wash, shelter, and protection. After the official launch of these handbooks, NIDM and Sphere India is organizing pilot testing sector-specific sessions in 6 states to gauge an understanding of the responses from government and CSOs and charting out a joint plan for implementation and integration of the handbook in EPR actions. The forecast from the report of this Eco DRR module shows that the rise in sea level is there, as well as receding glaciers, extreme weather conditions, and unprecedented onslaught of disasters, all of which continue to stress ecosystem. 2021 is also the start of the UN Decade on Restoration. The decade specifically aims at facilitating global cooperation for the restoration of degraded and destroyed ecosystem. It promotes restoration activity by national government and all stakeholders and endeavors to combat climate change, safeguard biodiversity, food security, and water supply. 2030 is the deadline for sustainable development goals as well. So keeping in mind this context, we stand at the juncture where we must incorporate ecosystem-based interventions into our disaster risk reduction activities so that we can build a resilient community. EcoDRR, in fact, provides viable solutions that reduce disaster vulnerabilities and support the restoration, conservation of the environment, and help address social and developmental challenges. This module 1 that we are taking on today will help us understand the basic concepts behind EcoDRR and provide the practical know-how of how to solve disaster risk challenges through EcoDRR techniques. Basically, this module 1, it has basic concepts, and it has for every learning unit, we have enabling unit. So since it is the learning unit 1, which talks about basic concepts in EcoDRR, and for this, the associated enabling units are like ecosystems and ecosystem services, hazard risk vulnerability analysis, DRR and eco DRR, nature-based solutions and standards, climate and disaster governance, international standards, and the Indian context. So this all we will be talking today. So without much delay, I would like to introduce our panelists for today's session. We have with us Professor Dr. Anil K. Gupta sir, who actually needs no introduction. This is because he is the one who had coined this word eco DRR back then in 2010 during a meeting of UN campus in Bonn. Professor Gupta is a sustainability risk management strategist working in the area of disaster management, environment, and climate resilience for more than 25 years with national, subnational, and business administrations. He is currently working as professor and head of National Institute of Disaster Management, Division of Environment and Disaster Risk Management. Professor Gupta has been instrumental in providing us the guidance in developing this module. He will be introducing us to some of the important aspects of ecosystem-based DRR in disaster risk activities, especially in the context of India. Also, special congratulations to him for getting more than 6,000 reads globally to his manual on climate change adaptation and DRR into departmental planning at districts, which was published in 2014 under Government of UP project. We also have with us Ms. Preeta Acharya, who will be taking session on nature-based solutions and standards today. Ms. Acharya holds a master's degree in environment sciences and is currently working with NIDM as a senior research fellow under the CAP RISK project. She has previously worked with IUCN, that is a UN observatory body with their business and biodiversity program and Mangroves for Future program. She holds expertise and has been working for more than 5 years in the field of biodiversity and ecosystem conservation, nature-based solutions and eco-DRR, community outreach, and capacity development. She is currently associated with a resilient health and resilient agriculture theme under CAP RISK project. And we also have with us Dr. Shweta Badya Das, who will be taking a session on a role of NIDM in eco-DRR. Dr. Shweta Badya has done her PhD in oceanography from National Institute of Oceanography. She has worked on the paleoclimate and monsoon shift from last glacial maximum to Holocene. Later, she was working on glaciology in Jawaharlal Nehru University and Ministry of Earth Sciences. She was also teaching disaster management in Jamia Millia Islamia and now working in NIDM as a research associate in climate adaptive planning for resilience and sustainable development in multi-hazard environment, shortly named as CAP-RES. I would like to mention here that I've been fortunate to be a student during my Jamia days in New Delhi. So it is really good to welcome you, yeah, ma'am. And we also had Dr. Swati Singh, but who was to speak on HRVA. Unfortunately, she couldn't participate due to illness. But we have Mr. Michael Islary, who will speak on ecosystem services, potentials, and challenges for DRR. Mr. Michael Islary is a junior consultant at NIDM, and he is also at an advanced stage of his PhD in development studies at the Institute for Social and Economic Change, Bengaluru. Mr. Islary has several years of experience working at the grassroots levels in the states of Odisha and Assam. He has also published few research papers and has written articles for the East Mojo and the Wire, among others. So without much delay, I would like to call upon Professor Anil Gupta sir to take this forward and present his session. Thank you.
Very good afternoon, all the team. Dear Altamash, you very nicely set the context of this journey where we are going to discuss about various aspects of Eco DRR. So my fellow colleagues who will be speaking on various aspects of Eco DRR in this session. First of all, on behalf of National Institute of Disaster Management, Executive Director and IDM, and my faculty colleagues and the entire team, let me extend sincere greetings to the entire Sphere India team and the coordinating team from the state of Manipur. When I say Sphere India, it is not only one organization, it is a coalition, so it is a large group. Large people are associated. And Manipur being one of the very important state from the northeastern part of the country. And there are very specific significance of taking this launch event or the pilot program of Eco DRR in the state of Manipur. First of all, let me admit to this that when we say the concept of Eco DRR, so it has not been untouched for India. The value for ecosystems in various forms, maybe in the form of worshipping our plants and animals and other aspects of biodiversity across the religions, and valuing them for their contributions to the sustainable living of the society, has already existed in Indian culture and ethos. Across the geographies, across the religions, across the languages, across various other aspects of culture and society in India. So that is very important aspect. So it has really been a good happening in 2010 when we started using this particular term called ecosystem approach to DRR. As Altamash shared with you that I had the privilege of using this word first time, and then all agreed with me that we will use this short abbreviation kind of word, Eco DRR. That looks very sweet also and very clear also to all. This is a very interesting time and very useful time for this initiative. We all are preparing for the COP26 of UNFCCC, United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. And the recent report of on climate change, the sixth assessment report, has brought out various significant outcomes. But if we look at the key lesson, that is very much, I would say, that political and social. And that is the message that whatever we have done to address climate change globally is highly inadequate. And that is the reason people have started talking about this issue as with the names like climate emergency or code red kind of things. Alongside the climatic risk, the gamut of disasters or the types of disasters have also changed, took a new form. For example, now air pollution episodes are also taking the form of disasters. Air pollution has never been considered a kind of disaster, but after 2019 incident in the NCR region of Delhi, there are many parts of the country where the air pollution episodes are of serious level, and we have started talking about these. Beside this, the heat related issues, the heat wave had been a context limited to only few pockets in the country. But after 2015 and 2016 episode, where thousands of people are known to have lost their life because of the impact of heat wave, the spread of heat wave has also become quite wide. Even the states which are under snow for significant part of time, or they get huge amount of rainfall, or the colder states, even the heat wave has reached to those states also. So we have moved from single hazard or two hazard context to a multi-hazard context. Even if we talk about the Manipur, which is an earthquake prone state, or a part of the earthquake prone belt, and face a major earthquake also in recent past, now facing other water related disasters also. Now, drought is very common now in Manipur. Even the incidences of vegetation fire, forest fire are also there. Floodings are also there. Disease outbreaks are also there. Faced that a kind of a third wave of COVID. So what we realize that the issues related with water, climate, and other aspects of natural resources are becoming very, very important and prominent in the when we discuss that what are the key aspects associated with the disaster risk and vulnerability are very important. So when we look at the origin of these layers of vulnerability into the environmental systems and resources, we will certainly have to find the solutions also there. Why? Because these solutions are very close to the so-called community-based approaches of disaster risk reduction, and also have a lot of co-benefits, have a lot of economic efficiency aspect. For example, we talk of the sea level rise also. We talk of the cyclonic storms also in our coastal states and east coast and west coast. We all know that there's a large program going internationally that is called Mangroves for the Future. So we are promoting the plantation and protection of mangrove forests. And by that way, we provide local people livelihood opportunities, because those are also the breeding sites of tortoise and other very important fishes, and provides a lot of livelihood and local economy opportunity to the communities. But on the other hand, provides a very strong buffer against the impact of the cyclonic storms, and they diminish the intensity of the cyclonic storms. So similarly, in the hilly areas, landslides and flash floods are also common. And we all know that the increasing rate of siltation and increasing slope erosion is very common across all Hindu Kush Himalaya. And the number of landslides and whatever landslides were earlier, their intensity and so their impact has aggravated. And when we look at the approach of ecosystem approach or ecosystem based interventions, one aspect is that we are looking at the ecosystem services. So very low cost or sometimes no cost interventions. A lot of traditional wisdom is applied. So not needed that we bring the alien technology or the very high modern technology from outside with lot of expenses, not needed. But it also provides a very good opportunity of a blended approach or integrated approach. And I think that is the concept being discussed globally. So when we talk of ecosystem approach, it doesn't say that you do not use any engineering interventions, or you do not use any technological interventions, or you do not have the emergency response in place. No, ecosystem based interventions rather allows all the approaches, all the best possible approaches to integrate. And that is the best thing. For example, we can have retaining walls. We have this geosynthetic materials, are the the net or geosynthetic material in the form of, and then the local vegetation. So combination of this can really work well in stabilizing our slopes and reducing the risk in the landslide prone areas. There has also been recently very good initiatives in technology based interventions. For example, how do we use the sensors? So these solutions offer options which are easily acceptable by the people and can be implemented by the people. So that is very important. In cities also, now there are increased sufferings of water scarcity or water related challenges. Certainly urban flood is the other one, which is very much common. Even in the states of the Hindu Kush Himalayas also, the cities in HKH states also. So we are looking at that how wetlands can contribute. Wetlands are very commonly known ecosystems. And Manipur sets a very good example, because one of the famous wetland, the Loktak Lake, that mesmerizing, yeah, even if we see on video or anywhere, we feel mesmerized. That sets an excellent example. Also excellent example of that how living with risk or living with nature kind of thing. So how do we live with the nature with minimum conflict with the nature and natural systems? And basically this ecosystem approach also teaches us that how do we start valuing ecosystems and start thinking, start a synergistic approach, that where we live with the nature and we reduce the conflict with the nature. So automatically the vulnerability and exposure to hazard will be reduced, and also the intensity of hazard. So that is important. So I would not be speaking for a long time, and rather I would be looking at the various presentations and speakers. NIDM has been very actively engaged in promoting ecosystem approach to DRR since its beginning, and has been the pioneer contributor jointly with UNEP. We supported United Nations Environment Program globally, not only in India. The first pilot workshop that was done in Colombo, we organized jointly with them. And the first international workshop that was organized in New Delhi in an IDM campus. So when we talk of eco DRR, indirectly it also provides a excellent opportunity for economic efficiency and financial resilience, or I would say the economic resilience at the local level, because still even now a large number of people are directly or indirectly associated for their sustainability, financial viability and sustainability, local economy on various aspects of natural resources. So if we say agriculture, so directly the farm activity, but also the agro business, agro industry, and so on and so forth. Similarly, in the forest ecosystems also. Similarly, so many bioproductivity systems of wetlands and other aquatic systems, the fisheries systems, aquaculture, so many things. So I think we need to look at the best practices and good examples. And there are good examples already available. But what is further needed, that how do we identify good examples in particular region and then integrate further into the planning process? And there, in fact, the role of civil society, the role of volunteers, role of interagency groups like Sphere India, are very important. Because government alone cannot really work and cannot achieve the risk reduction and preparedness to the vast setting of hazard that the Indian soil has. So with this, I once again extend my best wishes to the Sphere India team, Altamash and Dr. Shweta Bedya Das for taking up this initiative, and my fellow colleagues and other resource persons who are going to share examples and the lessons. I'm sure, and I would be keen to listen to their deliberations. So thank you, and over to you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for this wonderful session. It's wonderful to get all these insights from you, especially topics such as ecosystem services, which we hardly pay attention to. Also, the way you linked the slowdown, the ecological slowdown, I mean, to its effect on economic slowdown, and how EcoDR approach is important for reducing conflicts with nature. And for that, we need to look at good practices and the role of coordinating agencies for this. So thank you all for this wonderful insights. Now, I'd like to move on and request Mr. Michael Slurry to share his presentation, and you will be speaking on ecosystem services, potentials and challenges for DRR. Mr. Michael, please.
Althamas, my PPT is visible?
Yeah, it's visible.
Okay. Good afternoon to all, and thank you for giving me this opportunity. During the introduction, Mr. Althamas already mentioned that I was a standing batsman, like as they say in cricket. So I was actually not supposed to be speaking this during this webinar, but then as I was asked, so I did not say no. But so the topic that I will be speaking this afternoon is ecosystem services, potentials and challenges for disaster risk reduction. Now, when you are speaking next to the person who has coined the subject or the concept, it becomes challenging as well, and it becomes easy to speak as well. So, and in fact, jokes apart, I mean, whatever the kind of examples I put in my slide was already mentioned by Professor Anil Gupta, who is my mentor and boss at NIDM. Nonetheless, let's proceed. My slide is visible, right?
Yeah, it's visible. You can do it full screen.
Okay, just a minute. Yeah, it's full screen now. Hello.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. It is. A reminder. The recording has stopped.
Okay. Yeah. So, this is a brief presentation I'm going to make. This is the presentation outline. I'll be I'll be talking about what ecosystem is and what ecosystem services are, and what ecosystem-based DRR. In fact, it is already mentioned, but then again, examples of ecosystem-based DRR, and then challenges and way forward. So we all know what ecosystem is, and then it's a standard definition that it's a community of living organisms that interact with their surrounding. And then when we say living organisms, it starts from insects to reptiles to fish to animals and many other living organisms that are visible and non-visible. And so these living things or living organisms, they interact with non-living things, that is their environment, the natural environment, that is sunlight, or it could be heat or the rocks. Yes. So and why it is important that ecosystem should be in a sustainable or in a healthy condition? Because when the ecosystem is in a sustainable or in a healthy condition, it keeps everything in balance. So different organisms, it enables them to produce or procreate for the future generations as well. So that way, when there is a fine balance in the ecosystem, when there is a fine balance in the interaction between ecosystem, so there is a sustainability in the system. So so we should always ensure, given the circumstances that we are living in right now, we should ensure that the health of the ecosystem is in fine in fine form. Yeah, talking about ecosystem services, the Millennium Ecosystem Assessment Report 2005, they have clearly defined ecosystem services into four categories. I mean, the services or the ecosystem or the well-being or the benefits that we derive from the forest. Like in the first is the provisioning services, that is food, the fresh water, wood, and fiber, among others. So these are in terms of our daily consumption, or the water that we use for agricultural production, and or maybe the fuel wood gathered for cooking, or many other activities, household activities in rural areas basically. And so it also helps in regulatory services. It also renders regulatory services. When I say regulatory services, it means it helps in climate regulation or flood regulation or disease regulation, or maybe it also purifies water. And supporting services, it helps in soil formation or nutrient cycling, and also in primary production. And last but not the least, we talk about cultural services that we derive from nature. Like Sir also mentioned that since immemorial, in different parts of the world, like where indigenous people or tribal communities are living, they have been living in close relationship with the nature, in terms like the tribals in different parts of the world. Tribal people worship nature. Like for example, in India, we have sacred groves. Like because of what called so among the tribals, particularly in Meghalaya, there is this concept that their deities or the spirits live in that forest. So that way they preserve those forests, and they don't distract or something, because they believe that their gods or the spirits or ancestors live in that forest. So we have been coexisting with nature. The tribal communities or the indigenous people in the world have been coexisting with the nature, and in return they are deriving various benefits out of it. And talking about ecosystem based DRR, so it is nothing but the International Union of Conservation for Nature has defined that it is a sustainable management and conservation and restoration of ecosystems to reduce disaster risk, and also to achieve sustainable and resilient development, among others. And this concept of eco-DRR, I think it became much more prominent from the time of Sendai framework, and which largely focus on disaster risk reduction based on ecosystem. And like Anil sir already mentioned that when we talk about ecosystem based disaster response, or when we talk about ecosystem based disaster risk reduction, it's not that we are going to ignore all other forms of or civil engineering techniques or other forms of disaster risk reduction techniques or approaches. But what we are going to do is we will complement the other traditional forms of disaster risk reduction approaches with the ecosystem based disaster risk reduction approach. And the UN decade also has announced that the 2021 to 2030 also is an ecosystem restoration, is a decade for ecosystem restoration. Why? Because the well-managed ecosystems such as forests, wetlands, coastal systems act as natural infrastructure, reducing physical exposure to many hazards, and thereby increasing socioeconomic resilience of peoples and tribal communities, and also giving them livelihood opportunities, and providing essential natural resources like food, water, and building materials, among others. Now, here I would like to share a few examples. The first is like so there are different kind of examples, but I would like to share this article written by Tomohiro and others. They studied about the Watarase retarding basin, a historical example of ecosystem-based disaster risk reduction in Japan. So the Watarase retarding basin, which is located 60 kilometers north of Tokyo, is the largest retarding basin in Japan. The retarding basin was constructed at the beginning of the 20th century to store toxic pollution from the nearby Ashio copper mine. The copper mine is located in the upper stream of the Watarase River, and which is based on example of environmental pollution in Japan. The authors analyzed the land use changes over the past 100 years in the area. So at the time of construction, which began in 1907, the ponds, grassland and marshes were evident, or they were present during that time. But the authors mentioned that by 1979, the Watarase retarding basin was a wetland or water area. A large part of the retarding basin had become arid after that. So in 2001, the land used in the retarding basin was a mosaic of wetlands with common reed and Amur silver grass. So most of the area became a Ramsar site in 2012 because the area is representative of a reed-dominated low moor wetland in Japan and has a high level of diversity of wetland flora and fauna. Typhoon Hagibis struck eastern Japan on 12 to 13 October 2019. So the article or the authors mentioned that the Watarase retarding basin stored 250 million metric tons of water and prevented flooding water downstream in the Edo River. So this is a very fine example of how the ecosystem has prevented from a disaster. And the other author, the other article is about scientific evidence for ecosystem-based disaster risk reduction, which is written by Karen Sudmeyer, Rex, and others, which talks about scientific evidence to a review of 259 English journal articles, which was published between 2000 and 2019. So this article talks about the extent of knowledge on and confidence in ecosystems in reducing disaster risk. The data demonstrate robust links and ecosystem cost effectiveness between certain ecosystems in reducing specific hazards, something that was revealed to be particularly true for the role of vegetation in the stabilization of steep slopes. However, the article states that the published research is very limited, in geographic distribution and scope wise, and it is concentrated largely on urban areas of global north. And but I would not like to generalize, but there are also some evidences coming up, in fact, from India as well. Like when you see this picture of what called mangroves, we always go back to Sundarbans, or we always go back to Bhitarkanika, the mangroves in Bhitarkanika. So during the cyclone, the Bhitarkanika mangroves, it protected the neighboring villages from tidal waves. So, and when as compared to villages which is not not protected by such kind of, or which doesn't have natural barriers like mangroves, they're worstly affected as compared to the villages that is being barricaded by mangroves. So what are the challenges, and the challenges before us is there is the Living Planet Index report, which is published by WWF. So this states that since 1970, the population sizes of mammals, birds, fish, amphibians, and reptiles have seen an alarming average drop of 68%. So this is very alarming, and this is very much alarming to all of us. Those who are either or not we are attached with conservation or not. So if we care about planet Earth, I think this is the right time, or we should look forward to do something that is right for the environment. We should talk. And we all know, if there is no fine balance, on the ecosystem, the drastic can happen. Like there will be drastic effects in terms of flooding, in terms of heat waves, in terms of many other disasters. And there would also, given this kind of circumstances, there will also be migration of people from one place to another, which yet again put people into conflicts for resources, and then for space, among other things. So these are the challenges before us. And like as we all know that this decade from 2021 to what called 2030 is a decade for restoration. We should look forward to restore those systems that is being degraded. I mean, but when we talk about restoration or afforestation, we should also keep in mind that that restoration programs are inclusive in nature, that indigenous people or tribal communities or maybe women folks are being involved or or they participate in this kind of endeavors, so that there is no exclusivity, so that people, different strata of society, gain benefit out of these endeavors as well. With this, I conclude my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you for an insightful presentation. You aptly captured the basic concepts, the definition of ecosystem, the ecosystem services. He also shared about an example of water-based retarding basin of Japan, which is a historical example of eco-DRR in Japan, as well as the challenges and way forward. That is, the population size of flora and fauna have seen an alarming drop of 68% since 1970. So it's really an alarming rate. Now, I'd like to call upon Dr. Shweta Padyadas, who will
Altamash, you are not audible. You are on mute.
Yeah, can you hear me, ma'am?
Yes, right now.
Yeah. So please share your presentation, ma'am.
So please excuse me for this, but right now there is no one to hold him, and I will be. Just give me a moment. I'll come back.
Sure.
So I would request if you can please request Pritha to give the.
Sure. Okay, no problem. I'd now request Ms. Pritha Acharya to present her part, and you let me start your presentation from my side.
So by the time Altamash is sharing the presentation, I'll just give a brief introduction. Well, I am Pritha Acharya. I'll switch on my video. Yeah. My name is Pritha Acharya, and I am associated with NITM as a senior research fellow under the KPRIS project, and I would be presenting on nature-based solutions and its standards. Well, I'm not an expert in this topic, but during the course of research, I developed a very fondness towards it. There's a lot of work, and it holds a lot of potential, and this needs to be shared among the mass audience. So that's why I chose this particular topic, and when given this opportunity to speak on it, I said yes, I'll definitely do that. Can I have my presentation, please?
Yes, Pritha, just a moment.
Yes, ma'am. Sharing it.
Ms. Prita, just a kind request. Your internet is lagging a bit. If you could turn off your video, it'll be better.
So I think it's okay now.
Yes, your voice is clear, ma'am. Thank you.
So what are nature-based solutions? Well, nature-based solutions are very simple living solutions that are inspired from nature, continuously being supported by nature, and they use nature to address many of the societal challenges in a resource-efficient and an adaptable way. And the outcomes of these solutions are very, the main three aspects of development, which is economic, social, and environmental benefits, helping us to grow in terms of our developmental needs and as a society. Next slide, please. So this concept is relatively very new, and it came in 2002, where the two world biggest organizations called the IUCN and the European Union, they started to, they are the pioneers in this particular topic, and they are trying very, and they're working very well in terms of mainstreaming this particular concept. So why are we talking about NBS anyhow? Well, we know that we have reached the pinnacle of our development, and this development has cost us a lot. Well, in the past 20 years, we have lost almost 10% of our wilderness areas and 60% of more than 3,000 species that exist, and almost 75% of the insect species, which includes the pollinators, which are very important. We are losing them day by day, and almost 90% of our fisheries are under the threat of getting collapsed, because all of them worldwide are completely overexploited. And if this continues, by 2030 the demand for food and water will increase up to 35 and 40%. So it is time to think that development cannot be stopped. Sustainable development is the answer, we all know. And development and environment has to go hand in hand, and we have to use nature to cure nature. So nature-based solution is the answer for all these problems, as it holds the power to reverse all these losses. Next slide, please. So when we talk about nature-based solutions, ecosystems, as in the previous talk, Dr. Michael shared about, ecosystems are at the heart of nature-based solutions. So nature-based solution, they use actions to sustainably manage, restore, and protect ecosystems, so that we get dual benefits apart from societal combating societal challenges. And these dual benefits are biodiversity enhancement and at the same time human well-being. So we depend and impact on our ecosystems, and the services that we get from our ecosystems are called ecosystem services, and there are 4 types. And nature-based solution, they work primarily on the interaction of these 4 types of services. Next slide, please. So when we talk about NBS, coming to the categories of NBS, when we talk about the topology of NBS, there are 3 types of nature-based solution. First, we talk about using the existing natural ecosystems, wherein we talk about the protected ecosystems, the existing forests, the existing pasture lands. These are the type of the natural ecosystems. Then the second type of topology, we talk about managing and restoring ecosystem, or managed and restored ecosystem, where we use sustainable approaches and procedures to manage and restore ecosystem. And finally, the last type of last category of NBS is creating new ecosystems. And in this, when we try to work on this journey from natural ecosystems to creating new ecosystems, we are trying to maximize the ecosystem service delivery, and at the same time we're also enhancing the level of engineering that we are applying to biodiversity as well as these ecosystems. Next slide, please. So when we talk about NBS as a concept, it is an umbrella concept, and it includes 5 approaches, all of which are centered around ecosystem. As I mentioned earlier, the first approach is ecosystem restoration approach, which includes ecological restoration, forest landscape restoration, ecological engineering. Second type of approach is issue-specific ecosystem-related approaches. For example, we have ecosystem-based disaster risk reduction, ecosystem-based adaptations, ecosystem-based mitigation approaches. Coming to the third type of approach, it is the infrastructure-related approach, wherein we use natural infrastructure, green infrastructure to combat the societal challenges. Coming to the fourth approach, it is ecosystem-based management approaches, wherein we take into management approaches in account, for example, the integrated coastal management, integrated water resource management, that ways. The last approach is ecosystem protection approach, wherein we use area-based conservation approaches. For example, the reserve forests, the protected areas, the national parks, the marine protected areas. These are examples of ecosystem protection approaches. Next slide, please. So when we talk about NBS, there are 8 principles which are again given by IUCN, the pioneer of NBS. So these 8 principles are nature-based solutions. They embrace nature conservation norms. They're very simple, so they can be either implemented alone or in an integrated manner. They are site-specific. They produce societal benefits in a fair and an equitable way. Fifth, they maintain biological and cultural diversity along with the ability to evolve over time for an ecosystem, giving that ability to the ecosystems. Six, they can be applied at a large scale level on that scale. Seven, they recognize and address the trade-offs between the production of a few immediate economic benefits for development versus the future options for production of a full range of ecosystem service that would benefit our society. The eighth is they are an integral part of the overall design of policies and measures for action to address these specific challenges of the society. Next slide. So when we talk about NBS, the main 6 challenges, societal challenges that NBS has the ability to help us with is for livelihood, for climate action, for food security, for disaster management, for water security, and for human health. And how they do it? They do it in simple 6 ways, because they provide these solutions are very simple. They are so simple that they could be replicated at a number of places. They are verifiable. You can measure the benefits. These are sustainable. At the same time, they are cost effective. So that way, it helps us in helps us with the societal challenges. Next slide, please. So when we talk about NBS, it involves a concept called the 3-part framework. So what happens in this concept, we're trying to use actions with 2 elements. One is the nature element and the other one is the human element to get sustainable development goals. So nature-based solutions, they mean taking actions with nature, which includes protect, manage, restore, and connect with nature to solve a problem. So nature-friendly solutions are any products and services or actions that reduce this pressure on biodiversity. So it is being portrayed in the 3-part framework if you look at the figure below. So for example, a simple action like removing invasive species, which comes under which is a natural element, the outcome of this is water security or the water which is also an developmental outcome. Similarly, coming to the human element, if we take up actions, for example, like to avoid human element, that is use of chemical fertilizer, the outcome would be clean rivers or clean waterways or clean water bodies, which is also a developmental outcome or an SDG outcome. This way, you can see how the 3-part framework for nature-based solution works. Next slide, please. So now I just took this example. Say we talk about coastal hazard, wherein we are experiencing an area, for example, is experiencing a lot of coastal hazards. For example, sea level rise, storm surge, coastal erosion. These are the basic problems that are there. So we try to implement a nature-based adaptation or a nature-based solution intervention like mangrove restoration. So when we are doing mangrove restoration in that area, we are getting some benefits. What are these benefits? We are getting some direct benefits. For example, we are getting flood mitigation, we are getting adaptation and disaster risk reduction from the coastal hazards. We are getting shoreline stabilization. We are having advanced water filtration processes, natural water filtration process. We are getting forest-based products out of it. At the same time, we're also getting food security. These are the direct benefits. Now, if you see closely, these direct benefits, they in turn have their own set of co-benefits. So what are these co-benefits? It is also, with restoring the mangrove ecosystem, we are also creating spots for biodiversity. Biodiversity enhancement is there. It is allowing recreational activities. It is also providing us with climate resilience. There's a lot of regulatory services provided by the mangrove forest. So climate resilience is that's what we are getting as a result. We have pest control, natural pest control activities, because an entire food chain, a food web exists at the mangroves and the associated ecosystems that are there in presence of mangrove. It also opens up opportunities for educational purposes, and at the same time, livelihood opportunities are also increased. For example, if you see in Sundarbans, the mangroves are also providing the local people as the site for honey collection, which they sell into the local market, and then they earn a lot of substantial amount of money from it to sustain their families. This way, we are getting direct benefits and at the same time a list of co-benefits which are helping us in developing in terms of social independence, financial independence, and at the same time, it is also helping us with activities like pest control, which is the human element comes into play. Now, next slide, please. So this was, as I said, this was a very relatively new concept, and because of the 6 steps, which is a simple, replicable, verifiable, measurable, cost effective. So these are nature-based solution interventions are being taken up globally and a lot of countries are taking this up in their national climate strategies. But next slide, please. There are a lot of barriers when it comes to implementation of these strategies at a ground level, because first of all, there was a lack of consensus when it came to the definition of this particular concept. There were no framework, there was no standards. We just knew what nature-based solutions are, and a few examples of this. So the biggest problem was IUCN and European Union had conflicting definitions for NBS. Apart from that, other organizations were also chipping in and giving up, developing new definitions for this. So there was no consensus. So for greater clarity and precision about the concept and successful implementation of these concepts and intervention at the ground level, IUCN came up with NBS standards in 2020. And these are set of 8 criteria, which include 28 indicators, and it provides a robust framework for designing and verifying nature-based solutions that yield the desired outcomes in solving one or several of the societal challenges that I mentioned about. And also, without these standards, NBS would just remain as a vague concept, a general concept, and the fruits that are very, very beneficial for the society will remain inconsistent and will not be implemented properly in application. Next slide, please. So coming to the criteria, the standards, there are 8 criteria. The first criteria talks about the scoping activity as to what NBS could be, the effectivity of how NBS effectively addresses societal challenges. Criteria 2 guides the design of the solution responding to scale of the issue. Scale in this terms, I talk about the geographic scale, the economic scale, as well as the societal aspects of land, and if it is near coastal areas, the sea scale. Now, coming to criteria 3, 4, and 5, if you can see in the figure, they are the basic pillars of sustainable development, which talks about environmental sustainability, socially equitable, and economic viability. These three aspects are included in criteria 4, 5, and 6. Coming to criteria 7, which talks about NBS are managed adaptively based on evidence. So it responds to the need for adaptive management, which facilitates continuous learning about system-wide processes and adaptation of NBS according to the systemic changes. The last criteria talks about promoting the true potentials of NBS in a long-term implementation through embedding the concept and actions into policy and regulatory frameworks. Next slide, please. This is just a case study, and since I'm running out of time, I'll just try to go briefly. So this particular area in Madagascar, they had a lot of climate change issues in that locality. So extreme weather events were reducing the farmer yield and rice production, which was the main activity there, and it led to shortage of food which lasted for more than 6 months on an average. So they tried nature-based solution adaptations, which included sustainable agricultural practices like agroforestry, using of resistant crops, off-season rice, and terracing. Then they tried to diversify their activities based on these ecosystem-based activities. For example, they went for beekeeping, small fish ponds. They use these the leaves to make various types of handicrafts, and then they also try to mainstream this climate smart agriculture in their regional and local development plans. So the outcomes of this adaptation was that the livelihoods of these farmers were diversified, they were resilient and more stable financially. Now, for example, they shifted from food insecure subsistence agriculture to more resilient market-based agriculture. They started climate change consideration. They implemented the climate change aspect into their local and regional planning. And as a result, what happened, you can see in the figure down on the right-hand side, there are three generations. The first generation, when this particular adaptation was implemented, they could only manage one rice meal per day. And with time, the next generation that came in, they were easily getting 1.5 rice meals per day. And the last generation, which are getting the benefits, they almost have 3 rice meals per day, which is, I mean, phenomenal that way. NBS has a lot of potential. It is just that it needs a lot of understanding and more implementation in an effective way. Next slide, please. So next slide, please. So we at NIDM, under the project CAPRIS, which is Climate Adaptive Planning for Sustainable Development in Multi-Hazard Environment. It tries to promote the National Knowledge Mission on Climate Change. And through all the 5 spheres of this project, which are shown in the figure here, we try to increase the outreach and try to bring up with materials that helps in knowledge sharing regarding nature-based solutions. Next slide, please. So these are few of the publications that we have taken out, which promotes nature-based solutions in some form or the other. And we are doing our part in implementing this topic and making it more available to people, making them understand what are nature-based solutions, why is it needed, and how they are helpful in a longer run. So I would like to finish my presentation here. Thanks a lot. Thanks for patiently listening to my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ms. Prita Acharya. You rightly captured all about the NBS, the nature-based solutions, and the standards, the basic concepts of it, why it is important to talk about NBS, the services we get from ecosystem, and other basic concepts of it. The various approaches and 8 principles that you talked about, and the societal challenges, how the 3-part framework works in a nature-based solution. Especially, it was highlighting to learn various additional benefits of nature-based solution adaptation. You noted about barriers to implementation of these strategies on ground. It was good to know about that case study on sustainable forested landscape in about Madagascar. So it was really wonderful to know and learn this. So thank you so much. Now I would like to invite Dr. Shweta Bhatyadas to present her part.
Thank you, Altamash. Am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible, ma'am.
Yes. So I will just try sharing my screen.
Yes, visible.
Is it full screen?
Yes, ma'am. Clearly visible.
Thank you so much. So today I will talk on the contribution of NIDM in ECO-DRR, because as Professor Gupta mentioned, that from the starting itself, NIDM is playing some instrumental role in, framing the ECO-DRR concept and also in implementing the ECO-DRR concept. So I'll walk you through some of the activities that NIDM has taken up towards ECO-DRR. So as Professor Gupta has also mentioned, that it would be really wrong to say that we have started the ECO-DRR thing and it was not there before that. But the relation between the development, disaster, and climate change is intrinsic, but the recognition of the natural factors or recognition of ecosystem in disaster risk reduction at policy level, that started in UN campus in Bonn, in Germany in October 2010. So in that program, NIDM was a key member participant. And the title of the workshop was Ecosystem, Livelihood and Disaster, in which we have approached the social and ecological perspective in relation to the disaster risk reduction. So in that workshop, NIDM suggested first, as we all know, and NIDM, by saying that, I mean Professor Gupta, he suggested this term ECO-DRR. So actually he has coined this term ECO-DRR, which is really a short, nice term which explains everything on its own. So it was accepted by all and now it is globally known and used. And then later, United Nations Environment Program started preparing training manual in 2013 and it got published. But on the basis of the draft itself, the first pilot workshop was organized in Colombo in Sri Lanka in May 2011. So NIDM was the collaborator and organizing partner for that workshop. So in that program, the integrated strategic environmental assessment in post-crisis recovery and reconstruction was released. So practically this assessment was on the implementation of the role of ACA and EIA in the disaster risk reduction. And this was done with the joint support of UNDP and IUCN along with the government of Sri Lanka. So in the right hand side map, you'll be able to see the areas those were available for implementing this ECO-DRR concept or the environmental assessment concept with a very minimum constraint. So after that, the first international workshop was organized in New Delhi in December 2011 at NIDM campus jointly with UNEP. In this, participants from neighboring countries like Nepal, Bhutan, etc. had joined. This was the first international workshop on ecosystem-based disaster risk reduction. So in parallel to this, in the leadership of UNEP, another forum was developed that is named as Partnership of Environment and Disaster Risk Reduction, along with the Association of IUCN and UNDP and others who work in this sector of the development of environment. After that, in 2012, on World Environment Day, two important books were released. The first ever compendium of case studies on ecosystem-based DRR, and that was the first book. So it was developed and released by NIDM on 5th of June 2012. The other book was Environmental Extremes, Disaster Risk Reduction, which was the first ever book on EcoDRR. So UNEP, while organizing some training programs and other workshops globally, they used to use these books as a reference material for the people for some time until they came up with their own book in 2014 by United Nations University, which is known as UNU. But the EIA and ACA part of that UNU book also was contributed by NIDM. So UNEP has released a training manual in 2014 where it has given reference of previous NIDM works. In parallel to this, NIDM started training programs on land and water and ecosystem-based DRR, along with FRI and ICFRE role of forestry in disaster management was also started. Then NIDM started looking at the agroecosystem for drought management. So in the right-hand side, I've shown the book that was prepared at that time. Then NIDM started working on bioengineering measures for landslide risk reduction, as Professor Gupta mentioned that the landslide and the cloudburst problems are increasing in, especially in the mountain regions. So this was really important. In this, along with civil engineering, plantation approach was adopted for cost-effective solution for landslide management. So this plantation approach is again what Ms. Pritha and our previous speaker, Dr. Michael, has proposed, that is the nature-based solution. So this is the way. Then works on peri-urban ecosystems were also done. Training manual and series of policy papers were prepared and released by NIDM, in which issues like vulnerability of urban poor children to climate change and role of peri-urban ecosystems were addressed. So in present time, CAPRES program is working on green growth, and the first conference of this program was on disaster resilience and green growth for sustainable development. So at the bottom right of this slide, you can see that this is a photograph from that conference. So we are also preparing one training manual on this green growth approach. So NIDM has also organized a workshop on mangroves to promote the nature-based solution. So I remember in this workshop, even IUCN was a partner with us, and also the experts from Japan joined us, and they shared their views on nature-based solution, how we can practically implement them, and what are the issues that we faced while implementing. Then we organized a very special session in UNCCD COP14. So UNCCD COP14 was held in New Delhi itself. So the topmost picture is from that program. So that program was on reducing drought risk to improve land water resilience, mainstreaming eco-DRR pathways and tools. So in New Delhi, and the vision was to envision the global drought initiatives. What are the initiatives that we have already taken, or what are the initiatives that those are possible to take up in future? So we have also prepared the agricultural disaster management plan for the Ministry of Agriculture, and integrating the ecosystem approach through benefits of agroforestry, farm ponds, etc. was incorporated into that. Now we are preparing a disaster management plan for Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, where we have a lot of opportunities for integrating the ecosystem and DRR. We have also published a book on nature-based solution from Springer that Ms. Pritha Acharya has already shown you. Also, now we are working with UNEP at present and have a long association with IUCN. So these are some of the publications that we have come up with, and in all these publications, there are things where we have introduced this disaster risk reduction approaches through ecosystem. So these are some of the important document for knowledge sharing that NIDM has come up with. So we are working on this and many more to come. They are all in the pipeline. So this will be my submission for today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Dr. Shweta Bhadras. You rightly captured about various initiatives that NIDM is taking. You shared about contribution of NIDM in ecosystem-based disaster risk reduction, how NIDM is taking a lead in this regard since 2011 in association with United Nations Environment Program. Several programs, the training manual, organizing workshops, several measures taken since then for cost-effective nature-based solutions and ecosystem-based DRR. Initiatives of NIDM like preparation of agricultural plan, DM plan for the ministry. So it was really good to know about all these initiatives and measures. And in fact, this training module on ecosystem based approach, module 1 is also being done under your aegis. So definitely NIDM is doing really some wonderful job in this regard. So it was good to hear from all of you. Now, as I think our panelists have spoken on their respective topics, so I would like to open the floor for question and answer round. If any of you would like to ask something, any clarification from our panelists, although we have very less number of participants, but still we can ask something if there is any. We have minutes for it. Yeah, Divya Gupta ma'am from Sphere India. Yeah, ma'am, please ask. We couldn't hear you, ma'am.
Am I audible now?
Yes, ma'am, you're audible now.
So when I was working in Uttarakhand after 2013, that time I had witnessed that most of the community are living in a very, isolated manner. Their houses are very far from one place to other place. So when we are going to, integrate such community, such people in this whole process to adopt a DRR in our ecosystem, what are your tips to civil society organizations, those who are working in these areas, how they can engage such community, such isolated community to be part of this whole exercise? Especially those who are living in a very remote area or living in a very isolated, scattered kind of
Divya, you want me to respond?
Yes, sir. Please, sir. Please, sir.
See, Divya, you would agree that when we say that, on one hand, we say that the community are the people living in a very difficult terrains and they are living in a disconnected form. But on the other hand, I would say that they are living many times in a very, very connected form with the nature, actually. And there are many very, very important insights with them. Some of these traditional knowledge has been inherited and that remains with them, and some are getting lost day by day. So one is that we need to have a very effective documentation of the local knowledge of relationship with these relationship of these communities with this nature, not only of the living together, but also there are good insights of effective understanding the effective kind of a forewarning. Like some people in Uttarakhand, even Chandi Prasad Bhattji also told me that the people earlier, the native people of Uttarakhand, they used to understand the stability of water by smelling the soil, the stability of the land by smelling the soil. So I think if we analyze this statement scientifically, so we all know that all the chemical constituents of soil have the color and color, texture, and certainly there are order also. So the traditional wisdom, then which type of plants, the trees should be planted, which type of grass should be planted that can be helpful in reducing the erosion and can help stabilize the landscapes. I think we need to look at the ancient knowledge also and their local traditional knowledge. And there are several innovations. So this is one side. But on the other hand, I totally agree with you that even if people are living in isolated pockets and disconnected from each other, we would need to take the benefit of the media and communication systems to spread this documented knowledge, so that people can apply these, understand these, and can apply these, because the disaster preparedness also and the risk reduction also has a local context. The people living near the slope will have a different kind of risk setting, and people living near the river will have a different risk setting. So they would require a different kind of approaches also. So this is important. And here actually the civil society and the member of interagency groups, their role would be very important. And recently I discussed that when we are talking about Apada Mitra, are the volunteers to prepare and get ready and help the people during emergencies and disasters. I think we should not restrict only their role only for emergencies. Disaster management, as we all agree, is a round the year activity. So even when there is no disaster, these people are very much connected with the community, and people listen to them because they can speak the language of the people. They can speak in native language. They have their the ethos and culture. So local volunteers, local members who are part of the interagency groups, and these volunteer groups are Apada Mitra or whatever schemes are there. So their role in educating and communicating to people about these ecosystem-based interventions, which can safeguard them, which can help them reduce the risk. So that is also important. Yeah, many times these areas in Himalayan areas, we see that people are cut off during disasters. So what are the alternative local resources even that people can get from these ecosystems, and how to they restore ecosystem services? So I think very good questions that you have asked. So very important point, Divya. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Sir, I would like to share one important information here. Some of our IG members, they are helping local communities, especially women, to grow and to produce such agri products and other products, and
Great.
try to market linkages them with the market, with the proper market, where such items can be easily transported. And now some of them are really achieving a good success also in these projects. So expansion of such knowledge and such projects can also help in this thing, in this eco DRR process.
Bilkul. So that will help reduce the economic vulnerability also, and that will provide local sustainability also. Very and then people would take more interest, because that is providing them livelihood, and
Right, sir.
sustenance also. True.
Right, sir. See, if you
So,
I mean, the major cities, in a metro cities, in the malls, you can find some this kind of items there.
yes,
Like
yes.
they call them harwal, they call them the ragi is there. Some
Yes,
items which usually people, I mean, in last few years, we forgot to use those items. Those were good for our health also and good for our agri system also.
exactly.
But now again, I mean, such SHGs, such NGOs, they are trying to change that pattern.
Bilkul,
So,
bilkul.
I mean, from national level and from INGO side and from government authorities, if we can also promote such practices and help them to expand
True.
their projects, would also help sir in that process.
Bilkul. In fact, we are also looking at using Manarega basically
Exactly.
with our cooperation in our cooperation with the UNEP
Right,
on
sir.
Eco DRR. We are also trying to look at how Manarega can be utilized,
Yes,
and that we have the benefit in terms of Eco DRR, and we provide livelihood also. And this will be basically a third benefit that will be local economic sustainability,
exactly.
and particularly of women and these kind of people. So that will be a greater advantage.
A
So
good idea.
excellent example you quoted. And in fact, we should find out these kind of good examples from all the places. And we should think of some kind of a documentation or maybe sharing, at least whatever way we can share these, maybe through social media or whatever.
And sir, use of solar also. I mean, the promotion of solar can also help. I know a person. His name is Mr. Deepak Gadia. He is among I mean the top global 50 scientists, solar scientists. He is doing lots of innovation in solar. So if we can connect such brains with our NGOs and INGO members, that can also help us to promote solar also
Totally.
in our community.
Yes, and see the places like Sundarbans, where this in the evening then there is a total blackout kind of things.
Yes.
And there are different difficult terrains in hilly areas. So I think that can be really a great advantage.
Yes.
Excellent examples. Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir. Thanks.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
I would like to add something to Divya, madam. Madam, I will tell you that recently we are coming up with a study. So it is on the way of publishing. I guess within few weeks we'll be able to come up with that. And a very interesting study has come up. So that study tells that there are few hills in Karnataka. So there some wild edible plants are there, and you will be surprised to know that as much as some 80 varieties of wild edible plants are there, which you do not need to grow. It grows on its own, but you can just harvest it and you can sell it. You can use it for your home consumption also. You can also sell it in the market. So those are those are normally sold in a very high price. So that is another way. So we can also find out similar types of things in other places also in the native areas.
Very good idea, Dr. Sita. The collection of such information is also important. There are such good examples in our country in different pockets.
Yes.
If together we all INGOs and NGOs together, if we can collect those good practices and compile those practices at one place and share with all the stakeholders, that can also help people to learn more, practice more, and change the entire topography of our country within some span of time.
Yes, that is why collection of best practices are so important.
Exactly, that is important. Thank you, ma'am.
There's just something I would like to ask all of you, all the panelists and Divya ma'am, everybody else over here. We often talk about eco DRR and growing products that sustain our environment. And there are people, like you said, people who actually live in the wilderness, and they're a little cut off. And if they want to earn from it, I feel that there's one thing we need is tell them how to market their product. Because there are herbal, as Divya ma'am very rightly pointed out, there are these herbal products, all of a sudden they have come up, but they are being sold at a very high range. Right. So how can we make these common people understand the value of their herbal products? How can we help them market that so that they can earn a living out of it?
Should I answer?
Yes, ma'am, please.
So what I could assume during this COVID time, like this online marketing and online supply become, I mean, an integral part of our life. Not even the just the rich people or the middle class people, even for the lower middle class families. So if in that case, I mean, we civil society organization can also contribute in this process if we can connect with such good platform, these suppliers, these producers, these interior producer with a such online platform where they can demonstrate that item, provide the information related to their items, and can also sell their items, then can also be one of the option to linkages them with the market. And the same time, the buyer from the from the middle class community and from the underprivileged community, they can also access such herbal items and such eco-friendly items to use for their living, and also improve their health, their family's health.
Divya madam, I would like to tell one thing in this regard, that I will give you the exact website name, but there is a platform from central government side, and in that is an online selling platform. It's very similar to the Amazon or Flipkart or anything else of that type. So that is a platform created by central government, and there all the rural people or urban people, they are allowed to sell their homemade products, or like the products they are gathering from the forest or other things. So they are allowed to sell their products there. So I think exploring more about this would be really helpful.
Yeah, I mean, for artist related items, Trifed also support in such things, and I'm sure there must be other platforms you are talking about. They can definitely help. So I mean, people might not aware about such platform.
Yeah.
So being a civil society organization, we can help them. We can connect them with such platforms where they can go and sell their items and also demonstrate the information related to their items.
Right.
Thank you, Divya ma'am. Thank you, Dr. Das. I would love to know a little more about that platform you're talking about, ma'am. Maybe we can help spread a little more about it, spread a little more information and awareness about it, so that we can help the communities. Thank you.
So thank you, all of you. It is a engaging question and answer round, despite so less number of participants. Thank you to Divya ma'am and Professor Anil Gupta sir, Shweta ma'am, for this engaging round. I think we now come to the closing end of this today's training session. And so I'd like to extend my vote of thanks to all the participants and the panelists. Thank you so much to all of you. I extend our gratitude from Sphere India for taking out your time for today's session, share your wealth of knowledge, experiences, and insights on EcoDRR. I think we had a very good session with each one of you, some very important things, perhaps adding so much more to the module for us. Thank you again for taking this session and giving us a good understanding of basic concepts behind this. This is the first session, so I think there would be so much more that will feed into our next few sessions. This is the first part of the module. The second part of the module will be more practical approach, where we will be looking at stakeholder analysis and ways of designing EcoDRR interventions. I hope some of you will be able to join us for that also. I would also like to particularly thank Mr. Sabjit Singh Sahota. He is the head of emergency in UNICEF. I would like to extend our thanks from Sphere India for all his inputs in the development of this module. Both him and Dr. Gupta have been very instrumental in giving us direction while we were developing this module. I also want to thank all the participants for coming, even though it's a weekend evening. We hope we added to your understanding disaster risk reduction, and I'm hoping you will join us again for our next few trainings, at least for the second section of the module, which will hopefully happen in a month or two, perhaps. But thank you so much, everybody. Also to my senior colleagues, Gupta ma'am, Jennifer Kishan, Ritika, for the background work behind this training module, training session. So with this, I would like to call the meeting to a close. Thank you so much again for joining us today.
Thank you all so much. Thank you everyone for joining.
Thank
Have
you,
a happy weekend.
wish you all the same, ma'am.